I've never really been a fan of my name. My parents, I'm sure, took some care in giving it to me, but come on, it's a one-syllable word with no real smooth or cool way to say Paul. It just doesn't work very well. But hey, it is what it is, and I've got that now. But I've always wanted a really cool name like Max Power. That's a cool name, or Trent Steele, or maybe even Max Steel, or I don't know, something really cool. But those are winning names that they roll off the tongue. Anyway, your name is probably pretty important to you. And on some level, your parents took some care in selecting it for you. Maybe your name is like connected through family heritage. It's like an old family name. Maybe that's yours. Or maybe your name just really flows well with your last name, and your parents like, hey, that sounds great. And that's how you got named. Or maybe your parents were watching their favorite movie, and then when the credits were scrolling by, they went, boom, I'm going to pick that name. And that's how they named you. Now, your name is important to you, but not necessarily the way it was important to people of ancient days, specifically around, even before Jesus' time, to Jewish people before Jesus' time and in Jesus' time. It was really, really important what your name was because it actually shaped your identity. And so as we've been looking closer, specifically at these four men, which is Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, I've come to the conclusion that their parents did a pretty good job of raising their children and shaping their understanding of God. And the reason I kind of pulled that was when you understand what their names mean, you go, wow, those parents are onto something. Let me give you the example. Daniel, his name means God is my judge. Hananiah, his name means the Lord has been gracious. Mishael means he is the one from God. And Azariah means the Lord is my helper. That's pretty cool. And when you realize that parents named that way, each of their parents gave them names that reveal who they could ultimately become. And it shows me from the parents' perspective that they had an understanding of what it means to follow God. And then we add that to how these men lived their lives in a world that was opposed to their belief system. It's a safe assumption then that their parents instilled what it means to follow God from a young age. So when they get to Babylon and their names are changed to some pagan gods. It was not just an attempt to change their name. It was an attempt to not just remove their faith, but also their heritage. So I tell you all of this for one primary reason, and that's this. Parents of young children, parents of adult children, doesn't matter where you are in this. Parents, I say to you, don't be afraid to teach your children now what it means to follow Jesus, so that when they are adults, they can work through the rest of that themselves. Please don't buy into the false idea that, I'll let them decide what to believe. That's a really bad plan. One reason it's a bad plan is because it is your responsibility to teach them what to believe about God. And second, if you don't do it, somebody else is going to. And that somebody else could be the kid down the street. That somebody else could be the latest TikTok sensation. That somebody else could be a YouTuber. That somebody else could be Disney Channel. Somebody is going to teach your children who God is. Make sure it's you. Now, maybe on the other hand, you're here watching and you're going, wow, my kids are adults. They're off doing their own thing. How does this really matter to me? I say to you, parents of adult children, it's never too late to set the example for your children, no matter what their age. You always are their parents. Always. And for those of you yet to have children, consider this long before you do. How will you set up and plan to teach your children what it means to follow Jesus, even before they're here? And finally, maybe you're watching today and you don't have any children, and you're not going to have any children. This pertains to you as well. The reason being, because parents can always use some help. And sometimes what parents teach your children, what they say to them 100 times, just doesn't sink into their head. But you can come alongside and say the same thing, give them the same direction and advice, and guess what? They take off with it. And you have just blessed those parents tremendously. You see, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah had parents that guided them and instilled what it means to follow God and have a strong faith, especially in a world that's opposed to it, to successfully live their lives out in a world that wasn't always welcoming to their views. And that is what our next generation will be facing as well. More than likely, they'll be raised in a world that is opposing what it means to follow Jesus. And to instill that strength in them at a young age, parents, that's your responsibility. It's my responsibility. It's our responsibility. So don't be afraid to show them what it means to follow Jesus now.